Undertone follows Evie, a podcaster who's taking care of her elderly sick mother when on her podcast, she gets to hear some voice messages, paranormal activity style. Now, I would describe this movie as paranormal activity without the found footage, making it a podcast style movie, making it a lot more religious, and elements of presence with the way it's being filmed in some places. And that is the best way to explain what this movie reminded me of and the experience of the movie at the same time. Does it succeed as a movie as a whole for me? No. Would I be interested if this was a short and see how that would play out? Yes. So without further ado, let's talk about the pros for Undertone. Now, for podcast style, I think they use the elements of the podcast very good in the movie. The audio is very good in the movie. Even when you don't get like the podcast audio, but the audio from around, they do a really good job on that, really immersing you in the podcast style. I think they do a good job with that. And I think the way it's shot, and again, there are some shots that do remind me of Presence and how that was filmed. I thought, it was shot well. In some points, I was very interested. I think they did a good job filming it. Going into the mix, the biggest mix is definitely going to be Evie. This also does go for the acting. At some points, Evie does a fine job, and at other points, the character just feels flat. They introduce one storyline that I was like, this is actually a unique way to tell that storyline in this movie. I haven't seen this before. But the way they use that element, it just seems like it's an excuse to move the story forward. And we're going to get into a negative later on, but I just don't think they do a good job with that storyline. It doesn't entirely fit in the movie. Another mix is definitely going to be the religious elements. Now, this also does go for the biggest negative, which we're going to talk about in a second as well. So this does be a victim of that judgment as well. But I'm not the biggest fan of religious horror in general, if I'm being honest. But the way that they really did the religious elements heavy on, and maybe it would have been better if it wasn't for the biggest negative of the movie, but I didn't entirely love that, and part of the message just kind of rubs me the wrong way. Going into the negative, the biggest negative, this is a movie that spoon feeds you the entire movie to a point where it explains things way before you actually get there. Now, there is songs that play throughout the movie. Now, they play with the idea of the children lullabies, connecting that to how that works with the religious part of this movie. And I don't that kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit how they present the movie, and that's just my personal feelings of how I feel leaving this movie. But they explain something, and then way later on they do a reveal, but they already explain what that means way before you get there. Like, you reveal it after something happens. You don't do the reveal before it happens. And there are things like that through the entire movie. And the shots that remind me of Presence, it reveals some too. Like, it reveals stuff that's already going on way before it happens. And I can't. The jump scares too, they're not great when you do get them. Now, an audio jump scare, that was interesting the way they use that. Doesn't entirely land. I'm not a fan of that element. Not the biggest fan of one storyline they introduced either. Now, yes, this is a very unique way to have that, but it just does not feel very together with the movie. It feels like they just threw that in to kind of make everything else make sense in a way, and I really wish they dwelled on that better. And now part of it, and this is like a personal thing for me, I just don't kind of like how they made me feel, and I felt like, okay, what are you even trying to insinuate with that? Like, that's just a personal thing that bugs me, that I'm like, don't entirely love how that makes me feel, and it kind of rubs me the wrong way. Going into the sport, and just like Paranormal Activity, this is a movie where nothing happens until the end. And when you actually get to the end, it feels like there's so much going on, and all of a sudden it just stops suddenly. Spoiler section here. The story I am struggling a little bit to put together here. So, so it seems like, okay, so we get the character, we're introduced to the character as she's caring for her mother. We find out that it's the end, she's almost to the end of the days as we get the conversation kind of early on, which again, I feel like if you knew that's coming forward, I'm like, okay, get revealing something soon. All right, okay. We then get the reveal kind of the Baba song, or one of the songs that get revealed early on, and they explain what it means. Like, she literally brings it up before. And then way later on, the character talking to her is like, hey, remember that earlier when you mentioned that explaining in that meeting and everything? Oh my god, here, what a coincidence. And I'm like, that is when you take it and you're like, what does this mean? Because they play with other songs before of like playing it backwards and kind of hidden messages of children kind of warning danger. And with the children in this movie, with the pregnancy, she is revealed as pregnant, which again is pretty easily guessable as soon as she throws up. I thought in my head, oh my god, are they gonna make her pregnant? And they do. And I can honestly say, I have never seen a movie like this where they use pregnancy the way that they do. But it just feels like kind of like thrown in there, and she finds out that she's pregnant, and that's not really explored really any at all that I felt in the movie. And their mother relationship, I think that would have been interesting if they developed the relationship more. Now we get the relationship between her mom and her a little bit when she's like checking on her and taking care of her. But again, the character kind of feels flat in some of those moments. And I can see, like, if you know your mother's death is coming and you've been dealing with this for a while, like you said, she's been in the house for weeks. I mean, you can be a little flat. You can just be like, kind of dead. I've been moments where I've been dead in my life, but it just feels very flat at points. And at the very end, and this is again very much like Paranormal Activity, where nothing really a lot happens till the end. And that final act is like, okay, we're getting somewhere. And by the time you actually get to the final act, it's like, that's when you're gonna end it? Like, you're gonna end it like right there? What? Why? And so I just not a big fan of it. And then they do the reveal of what happens before. They tell you what happens, and then to show the audio what happens. So they tell you, but they don't show. It's just crazy. And they explain what Azul means. And I kind of put together earlier, oh my god, is email gonna spell it? And like, it does. So it seems like when you hear the voicemails, it calls Azul coming. But that seems like very exaggerated. So by the time you actually get the attack, it's so short, the rest of the movie, it's honestly just all over the place. And the religious elements, again, the statue, they showed the statue so many times. So when you actually saw the statue, it's like, come on, how can you not like put that together? Just very much spoon foods you and just shows everything, explains it, then shows, which is very frustrating for a movie like that. Definitely could have been interesting. I would have liked to see this in a little short though. I think that would have been definitely more interesting. You definitely could have made it into a short. So comment down below if you saw Undertone and what you thought of it. Were you a fan of it? Were you not a fan of it? I can definitely see some people liking this movie for how different it is and maybe resonate with some people, because there are some elements they do very good, like the podcast style. The way they use podcast, you feel like it's a podcast, and they do a good job at putting you in that environment. But the rest of the movie just honestly doesn't really work. Comment down below what you think of it, or if you're gonna go see it. Do you like it? Do you not like it? I'll see you guys soon, because soon you'll see me in my bedroom, because this is the last time I'm able to film here for a while. So I'll see you guys, probably my collection next time.